The best piece of commercial real estate or the easiest piece of commercial real estate for a beginner? That's the topic today. What is the best for the beginner? What is the easiest piece of commercial real estate to buy? I would say that my recommendations for the best piece of commercial real estate to buy for beginners would be would vary based on the person specifically, probably, or the financial position that person is in, as well as the time that they have in relation to their normal day. So what can they contribute to that asset or that investment? So let's just say that you're let's say you are the average American with a household median income of like 72,000 or whatever it is. So you the best recommendation I have for that person or that family is to buy something well within their means. So I would say um something they could easily afford, and if something happened, they could afford to maintain while they sold it. Um, so let's use an example. I would, for one, always try to find a multi-tenant property. I would never buy anything that has less than 4 tenants. The only time I would do that is if I were buying something that could have a bunch of tenants, but at the time of the sale, it only had, four or two or one even. So like, let's give an example would be I'm buying an office building that's 50% occupied or half of the building's being used or rented. The other half's empty. That one tenant is renting um, that space. They've been there for a little while. They have a pretty good lease that will pay most of my bills. I'd be buying that lease and I'd be buying the vacant space. That vacant space, I would want to put as many other tenants in as possible or um, put as many other tenants in that's realistic for them to be happy in the space. So like, let's say it's 4,000 square feet just for easy numbers. 2,000 is being rented to, one office user, let's say, and that office user has their own side of the building. And then the other side is empty. It has its own entrance. It has its own restrooms. It's can it be divided into two spaces or can I rent out each office? I like to rent out individual offices to people because I find that like in my opinion, I would recommend that to be the easiest investment because it's safer. You might not have the best quality tenants because everyone's going to be kind of small, but you're going to have a lot less risk because if you have someone that doesn't pay you or you have someone that leaves or you have some turnover, you only lose a small portion of your income, not like half the building or the whole building or anything like that. I So continuing that example, let's say like half the building, 2,000 square feet's rented. The guy's paying $2,000 a month. He's paying his utilities because he has an electric meter. The other half of the building has 6 offices. Um, I would individually rent each office, and I would divide whatever normal utilities would be into those offices, and then just add that to the normal rent payment or negotiate that into the lease with the new tenant. So like, hey, you're gonna rent this office. You have access to the common area bathrooms. They're in the hallway. We have 2 bathrooms. I have a janitor. I don't say this to them, but I have a janitor. I pay him $100 every other week, and he cleans the bathrooms. And that their portion would be $25. Their electric might be $50. So uh, there might be $25 of other associated expenses. So I would say like, if I want to rent this office for 400, I'm gonna tell everybody it's 525. Have 25 rooms of $25 in room for negotiation. Hey, I'll do it for 500 if you sign a 2-year lease, or I'll give you, you know, $25 off if you sign a 1-year lease or whatever, I need to do. Um, I'll rent out, 5 offices for 500 and I'll get $2,500 and that will cover, you know, all of my bills. Plus I'll get the same rent I had. Plus if someone leaves, I go from, 25 to 2,000 a month for that side versus the other side, where if that guy leaves, it's like, oh, I went from, 2,000 to $0, or both sides are rented. I'm getting $4,500 a month, and the big tenant leaves, and I go down to $2,500 a month. Like that. That's pretty much like the gist of commercial real estate in general, trying to hedge that risk of people leaving and coming, which is like inevitable with real estate in general, but even more frequent with properties when you're starting, because you don't start with like, the largest companies renting from you. You want your mom and pa businesses. Do you want office, or do you want garages or warehouses, or do you want retail space? I would say, you know, it really is going to depend on your market and what those assets cost more than what you want to have. Like when you start, I would say pick the cheapest one, and the cheapest one's the cheapest because it's the least desirable, which also means that it has the lowest rates or the highest turnover or the worst kind of tenants. Um, for the most part, in general. So like when you start doing commercial real estate, a lot of people will talk in price per square foot. Like, what does somebody rent for an office for per square foot? When you are beginning, you're not going to talk in those languages because you're going to rent smaller spaces, and it's really going to be like a price point. It's going to be like selling a car to someone. I've never done that, but it's going to be like when somebody sells a car to you and they're like, what's a monthly payment you can afford? When I see a tenant, sometimes the first thing I ask him is, what's your budget? And let me see if I have something that would work for you within that budget. That's much easier than saying, here are these 10 spaces and these are the prices. Because if someone comes to me and says, my budget's 600 and I want a single office, I'll say to them, I have this office for 550 and I'll include your internet or whatever it might be. And then that office, I might have been marketing for, 475, but if they had a $600 budget and it works for them, like 550 works. And then I have more room to negotiate to make the deal seem better. I think that's kind of how sales works in general and how I've found it to be successful. I'm not doing it to take advantage of anyone, but I am doing it to optimize my situation and still be very fair to them, because there's a few dollars not going to hurt either side. Um, if it works for everyone, if they're able to be successful and you're able to be successful, that's really what creates a successful, real estate investment. You know, you have to realize that like it's not just about your bottom line. Like your tenants' spaces have to work for them, and they have to have thriving or at least decent businesses that support the rent. Because if it does, they'll stay for a long time. They won't have a problem paying, and it will all work out. Versus like just trying to get the top dollar, like pushing people, it's not going to put you in the best situation. No matter what you do. So, this is my recommendation for a beginner property. What's the easiest property to maintenance? What's the easiest property to take care of when you're a commercial investor? Buying something called a triple net long-term lease with a major company. And I'm not there. And it's somewhere that like I think every commercial real estate investor hopes to get to. But when you get there, your returns are smaller, like percentage, and it's much more expensive. So like things cost more, you don't get as much return, but it's very stable and it's almost no work at all. So like you don't need to hire a manager, you can do everything yourself from, anywhere in the world if you own that type of property, because, you're dealing with you know, the Amazons of the world, and they're going to pay you rent, and it doesn't matter where you are, and they're going to take care of their property, and you're you're only going to have to, maybe make a call once in a while to, for a lease extension, or if something major happens, or, you know, for the most part, you don't have to do anything. You just wait and collect a check. But that type of investment's extremely expensive, and it's the easiest. Once you have it, it's not the easiest to get unless you're starting out really wealthy and you're just looking somewhere to stick a lot of money. Then like those would be great choices if you're looking for hands off, you know. But what's the easiest for a beginner? What's the best for a beginner? That's two different things. I would say, like, I give you an example of buying an office building. I say office because right now office isn't super desirable by larger investors. So it's going to be easier to enter that market. There's going to be a lot more empty office spaces in your area when you look around, but there's still demand for office. There's still like your startup companies that need office space. Like if it's a therapy office, or if it's a sales office for a plumber or whatever it might be. Like he just wants somewhere to meet clients and they don't want to meet, he wants to use somewhere other than his house. Are they remodeling homes and they need an office and a dumpster? And you can rent them an office because all they really want is a place to put a dumpster because they can't put it at their house. And they want somewhere to meet a client to bid on their home renovations and look legitimate. That's the type of person you're going to cater to in the beginning. And that's what you need to focus on. The other option you would have that could be a little bit more expensive is you buy something called a flex space, which is basically like a glorified, garage and a small office, and you need a number of them. The only thing that's hard about that is those properties are hard to find because they're kind of a new product. Um, it's a step between like a self-storage facility crossed with an office building, and it's like there's a lot of demand for it, but people haven't been building that type of product for a for a consistent amount of time, so you're not gonna find like old ones. Like you'll find a small old office building, I bet, when you just look for one. Like if you type in commercial real estate in Google in your area and you pop up with loopnet.com and then you search for, what's available in my area, I bet you're going to find a number of office buildings that are empty in your market or like, mostly empty because in reality, most real estate investors don't want to deal with small offices once they get to a certain size. So like, it's really like a stepping stone in commercial real estate, in my opinion. And when they originally were built, it was probably like some company decided they wanted to build an office for their business and they built this building and then at some point their business outgrew it or they closed the doors or you know whatever it might be, and then some investor bought it or no one bought it and it's been sitting and they don't want to manage it because it was their office building. They're not real estate investors, they're not trying to be real estate investors. They sell bathroom fixtures. I don't know, whatever they sell. They sell widgets. Widgets are fake, a fake word, I think. We used to use it in business school a lot. They're selling widgets and they no longer sell widgets and they don't want to invest in real estate because they're widget salesmen. They're widget salesmen. And that's what they do. So, it's sitting empty and they'll sell it to you for a discount because you know, it's not their forte. And that's what you want to look for. That's the type of asset that's best for beginners. And I know I rambled a little bit here, but I'd be happy to go into this further if you guys comment below and please subscribe and hit that bell icon. And I'm trying to grow this channel and make sense of this. I'll continue doing it because I love teaching people. Even if one person watches, um, I'm going to keep going because to me that's super important to just keep going and like enjoy what I'm doing. So I really appreciate it. And thank you for your time, everyone.